units, this is 7 November Golf.
The target's heading right at us.
He's too fast.
Welcome back to Just a Guy Reviews. I'm Matt Sula, and today's special presentation is Godzilla from 1998, the first American adaptation of the famous monster, and boy did it fail miserably. I mean, not really box office wise, it did go on to make over 100 million, but it was panned critically. People hated it, especially Godzilla fans, because they think it basically spit in the face of the original. It looks nothing like the original. It basically looks like they saw Jurassic Park and said, hey, that worked. Make Godzilla look like a Tyrannosaurus instead of the original design for the giant monster. This basically ended up really poor in the eyes of Godzilla fans. They don't even call it Godzilla. It's just known as Zilla. They took the God out of it because he's basically just an oversized iguana, which they say as much in the description. Basically, it's a mutated iguana, and that's all it is. Godzilla in the original and in many iterations before is a godlike figure. You can't just shoot him with guns. You can't just throw missiles at him. He'll just shrug it off. In this version, the army comes at Godzilla with everything, shoots at it, hits missiles. He gets hurt, he runs, he retreats, he does all this shit. Things that Godzilla shouldn't do. Now, with all that being said, I still love this movie. I know it's terrible. The acting is god-awful. The writing, god-awful. But I think there are some cool shots here that Roland Emmerich did. I think there are some scenes that still really work. If they had just gotten, different actors, if they had gotten different writers, this movie really could have made a lot more money, and they could have continued with the sequels that they were planning to do. But it didn't work on a lot of levels. It actually ended up being nominated for a bunch of Razzies. For those of you that don't know, Razzies are the exact opposite of the Academy Awards. It recognizes the worst in movies from that year. It was nominated for, I believe, 5 overall: screenplay, worst director, worst picture, worst sequel or remake, and worst supporting actress. Now, Maria Patillo, who plays Audrey in this movie, won worst supporting actress at the Razzies that year. And she was terrible in this movie. She was unlikable. She couldn't deliver the lines. I even went to look at her Letterboxd page where she has 22 acting credits. It's the only movie I've ever seen her in, which really means her career did not take off. This movie also stars Matthew Broderick, a well-known murderer for the hit and run that he did in France, and also known for things like, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I'm not the biggest Matthew Broderick fan, and I think he's miscast in this movie. He should never be the lead of a giant action movie blockbuster. He should never be the lead where you need to get people to figure out how to fight this giant monster. Just absolutely miscast. Now, like I said, there are some things about this movie that I love. It's so bad it's good movie to me. I just accept the bad writing because it's a Godzilla movie. I expect bad writing for the humans. But there are some things that I think the director, Roland Emmerich, did really well. The first 5 minutes where he's attacking the tanker, but you don't really see Godzilla, is great. Very Jaws-esque, which is another problem, but I'll get to that. There's the scene where this guy goes out on a wooden dock in Manhattan. If you can find me a wooden dock that looks like that in Manhattan, I'll give you $500. But he's just going fishing. The guy's like, you're going to catch something big? Oh, I hope so. All this shit. And the way that the suspense builds with Godzilla getting the line, or it's getting attached to him and just going out, and then his spikes raising from the water and destroying the dock. It's all really good stuff. Him running through Manhattan, through the buildings, the helicopters following him. I think it all is really good. But again, the writing and the acting just brings this movie down so poorly. I really don't think it's a bad job directing, other than not getting the most out of your actors. Now, this movie does end up having basically 2 scenes where they try to kill Godzilla. One is in the water with submarines shooting missiles at it, and you get the illusion that it dies, but apparently it doesn't because the body disappears. I don't know how the body of a 70-meter tall lizard just disappears on the U.S. Army or the U.S. Navy, but I digress. Somehow, at some point in this movie, when Godzilla was disappeared, he found a way to get into Madison Square Garden, where he lays thousands of eggs. And from there, they basically go on to recreate the kitchen scene from Jurassic Park, where the velociraptors are chasing the kids in the kitchen. It's the same thing, because these little baby Godzillas that start hatching from the eggs all just straight up took the design of the velociraptors. They're just chasing them through Madison Square Garden, and it's bad. It's some bad stuff, but they end up blowing up Madison Square Garden to kill all the babies. But wouldn't you know it, Godzilla's not dead. Shows up, starts attacking the people that were in Madison Square Garden, being Matthew Broderick, Maria Patillo, and Hank Azaria, who you might know from Friends as David, the scientist boyfriend of Phoebe, and the guy getting screamed at Al Pacino in Heat. But they start running away. Their plan is to get it caught in one of the suspension bridges along Manhattan, and it's just so bad because they get him caught in the suspension. They start firing missiles at it, and they kill Godzilla. Very lazy stuff. It's, again, like I said earlier, this is supposed to be this god-like creature, the king of the monsters, and they just like bastardized it. It made it not a threat, not anything like that, but still, I find this movie to be a lot of fun at times. The execution isn't great, and it's 2 hours and 15 minutes, way too long for how bad this movie was. It ended up being the third most profitable movie of 1998, so it did still make over $100 million, but it was so panned by critics, by the audience, that it even got them to delay or actually cancel all sequel ideas. I do want to just point out that the worst line of the movie is they say, "We're gonna need bigger guns." Just more so just ripping off Jaws. Just being like, we're going to need a bigger boat. We're going to need bigger guns. Awful. I hated it. Like, it was such a poorly done homage and reference that I just thought it was terrible. Later on in 2014, Garrett Edwards would come and do the next American adaptation of Godzilla, where he took the Jaws approach as well. But it was just done so much better than this movie. I know the technology is way better 16 years later in 2014 than 1998, but boy, did they really just they made a miscarriage of a movie with Godzilla. They were on a rush schedule. They had no test screenings. They were just like, we got to get it out by Memorial Day. I don't care what you have to do, but you got to get it out before Memorial Day. That's the only thing. Overall, like, this movie has a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics, 28 audience, which is so bad. I love this movie. I think it's really good. I take that back. It's so bad that it's good. I have it a 3.5 on Letterboxd, 77 out of 100 for me, just because of the nostalgia. Nostalgia is the greatest drug in the world, and it works on me every time. Like, this is just one of those movies for me that my parents put it on, said, shut up and just watch this, and I'll do it gladly. But that's really it for Godzilla 1998. Tell me what you think of this movie. Be sure to like and subscribe, and be sure to keep checking out and keeping an eye out for my videos as I make more in the future. Peace.